Thank you for listening to Curious Cat, the podcast that examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. I'm your host, Jennifer Holtz. Join me every week as I explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. This week's episode is a little different. I have two stories to convey, a list of life hacks that hopefully help you thrive, and an announcement. Let's get into it. It's been almost 14 months that I've been in one geographical place. And that is weird for me. We did take a family trip to Japan last May 2024. But besides that, I've been pretty deeply rooted in Colorado. And it's taken me until I would say the last few days to figure out why I was supposed to be rooted here for so long. And I don't know, I swear it relates to the two stories I'm about to convey. In short, Denver has helped me to remember who I am, to take me out of the fog of who I was supposed to be, who people thought I was, and all the different roles that I played. A lot of them really lovingly played, like being a mother, the most important thing I've ever done. But I had to strip back those layers, and something about the tea-stained Colorado landscape, getting my boots on the mountain again regularly, helped me remember what I actually love and what stokes my inner soul fire and where I need to go next. So that said, every single morning except for those 2 weeks in Japan, I take my morning coffee at our dinner table. It looks out onto the front range of the Rocky Mountains. Actually, it looks out onto the remnants of the ancestral Rocky Mountains, which I think is so fantastic. Every day, those mountains look different. There are some mornings where it's completely fogged in or snowed in and you can't see them, which is kind of cozy too. Then closer to my little square patch in the world is a stand of evergreen trees, and they sit on the other side of a walking path, which actually is kind of illegal walking path. It is a path, it's a trail that goes beside a ditch, and I would call it a creek. In Washington State, we would call it a creek, but it's a ditch because they get the snowpack that melts there, and it's brought over to the big water facility because it is clean, wonderful water, right? But in this part of the year, in winter, that ditch is dry. They close off the pumps and it is dry, and it becomes a trail for coyotes, for bunnies, for, I've seen lots of birds, you name it. But up above, just slightly, like 4 or 5 feet from the ditch, is that walking trail. In order to access the walking trail, and this is why I say it's kind of illegal, there's a sign that says coyote activity detected here in bright red letters. But also you have to kind of go past a little half size waist high pony wall to go onto the trail. Everybody does it though. I watch them. I watch the walkers. Cooper barks at the walkers and their dogs. Sitting at that table for 14 months of coffee mornings, in quiet usually, until maybe Doug is up and he wants to talk, or if somebody's home and we visit over coffee, I have observed the patterns of nature around here. Not all of them, but a lot of them. One of the stories comes from that pattern that I was watching. It was this summer. and we have owls. I go out every evening as the sun is setting and I say, "Hello, owls. I love you." I did a whole episode on owls last week, so catch that because they are very magical, but they are crepuscular. They start getting active when the sun sets and they're stretching out their wings and they're usually taking off to hunt in the evening for meat. And so I'm used to the owls. But then we had some new neighbors move in and they were these giant golden eagles. Think bald eagles, but even bigger and golden. Yeah, like golden brown. They were absolutely gorgeous. Now, they tend to hunt, they're usually getting up early in the morning, like when the owls are getting nestled back into the tree branches. The eagles seem to be going out for their hunt. So I noticed there were two of them, gigantic ones, and they don't tend to make nests. They usually repurpose nests that have been abandoned, or I have to say, they might even eat birds that are in a place with a nest that they want because that's sometimes what they do. So this pair came into our neck of the woods and the owls made themselves scarce. I thought they moved out, but actually, and they might have just moved along a little bit because they seem to not want to intersect or pick off the same hunting grounds. I don't know. I don't know what the gentleman's agreement is between birds of prey. What I do know is that the eagles were around. They were more obvious because it was during more of the waking hours that they would just circle and soar, and they did their mating dance in the sky above my backyard and other people's land. Then, they had a pattern. So in the morning, they would leave the nest, and then in the evening, they would come back, right? So I'm assuming their bellies full or share their prey with each other. And then I started hearing a high-pitched noise that was happening where their nest was, up in that tree before the sun would set. And it sounded like an impatience, right? A little bird. And then I realized it must be eaglets. They must have had eaglets. Okay, so those are the new noises I got to know, the new rhythms of nature. They would come back and then they would give part of what their meat was that they were able to procure while they were out, and they would share it with their young, the little eaglets. And then those voices got louder and louder over the course of weeks as the eaglet was growing. Fast forward to, I think it was around September. It was dusk. I was outside to say hello to the owls because they had come back. And the sound from the eaglets in that nest were so loud and they were so persistent. They went from being high to high, and like there was a throatiness and a desperation I sensed, I guess. And I even wondered, what happened to the parents? Why didn't they make it back to the nest? Are they okay? Did someone shoot them? Which is totally not a Colorado thing to do. So that would shock me. But I was worried too. And the anxiety of the birds was freaking me out too, or one bird. All right, so the noise persisted throughout the evening. I could even hear it from underneath my covers at night with the fan going. I just sensed it. I was uneasy. I couldn't sleep very well. The next morning, I woke up and the path on the ditch was well lit, which is right beneath the evergreen trees, the stand of them where the old nest is. And sitting on the ditch by himself in the sunshine was the eaglet. And he was about a foot high at that point, and his feathers were kind of awkward, part fluffy, part flat, kind of different shades. And he was staring down at the dirt, and he wasn't crying anymore. It was like he got so hungry, he came out of the nest and tried to hunt, but he didn't know how to do it. So he's standing on the ditch, and I think he was seeing that there's a steady pattern of squirrels and other birds that are small birds and bunnies on that ditch. But because he's standing in broad daylight, they saw him. So by noon of that day, he was up on the electrical line, which was halfway up the stand of the evergreen trees. And he was staring at the ditch from there and making attempts to try to grab things from up there. Well, by the evening, he was gone. I think he realized that his parents had kind of thinned out, and even the coyotes probably had thinned out the bunnies and things like that in the area, and the bird had to move on. And so he did. It was jarring though, okay? He's this baby eaglet, and there was no announcement from his parents. Hey, son, this is the last meat we're going to be providing for you. Really enjoy it. And by the way, if you have anything to say, this is the last time we may see you. Goodbye. There was none of that closure, which as human beings really seek. And it seems so jarring, this change from being a baby in the nest to on your own. Months later, I'm thinking it was early November, there was this gorgeous golden eagle and a new mate, and they were smaller than the original parents, but they were circling and playing in the wind right above the stand of evergreens. And one of them dipped down and seemed to kind of look at where the old nest used to be. And I just knew it was that eaglet growing up. The second story relates, and it relates to what I have to share with you at the end of the episode. We have a steady stream of coyotes that use the ditch. In the summer months, they use the upper part. And I always make a joke over morning coffee because they will go one direction. They're walking toward the sunrise. So there rises in the east. So they're walking toward the east, and sometimes it's one, sometimes it's two, sometimes it's three, but they tend to go off and start their day of hunting when I'm sitting down to coffee. And I tend to see them and I say, have a good day at work. And I always think of Wile E. Coyote in the Looney Tunes cartoons going off to work with a little lunch pail. And then right about sunset, or sometimes it's just like 4 hours later, sometimes I catch them going west and they're back on the trail going back to their home. Maybe they already caught their fill. Maybe it wasn't going so well, so they're going to try the other direction. What I find so interesting is they also are very clever because when they empty out the ditch, then they start using the actual lower part of the ditch as their footpath. And that's because their shadows don't cast over the path and give them away, which I think is so clever. Okay, so months go by and we know the patterns. We've gotten to know the patterns of the coyotes in the ditch area. But then I noticed there's a pair, and this is just September, early October, and they were the most beautiful pair. At first, this beautiful pair, a male and a female, I noticed them working in tandem to hunt together, and the female would walk along. She was smaller, and she would walk along the ditch trail, and she would flush out prey like bunnies or little birds, and the prey would run into the ditch where the male was waiting, and he'd snap them up, and then they'd share the meal. I would see that sometimes. Sometimes we had the remnants of like bunny fur in our yard. Then I noticed the pattern changed. It was just the alpha male that was going out on his own to hunt, and he was bringing back the food to a little area kind of between us and a neighbor. So I knew he was feeding the female, and I wondered if she had pups. And sure enough, one day I was outside and there was high yipping and definitely pups, right? I don't know how many weeks passed, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, but pretty soon those yips were louder. And it's going to sound reminiscent of the eaglet because there was a pattern. And usually by the evening, the pups weren't yipping anymore because they were fed and they were, their appetites were satiated. No, they kept yipping through the night, yipping and yipping and yipping. And it had this mournful feeling to it, this sadness, this longing, this confusion, this hunger underneath it, this deep hunger, belly growling hunger. And it was coming from that corner. And I just knew that the parents did what they were supposed to, I guess. When they saw that their pups were old enough, they left, and the pups were on their own. Again, no announcement, no, this is your last meal, kid, nothing like that. It was just done. The parents made a decision, they moved on, the pups didn't know. And it even kept my husband up too. He heard the yipping. Then a few weeks later, we caught sight of the growing pups. They were probably knee-high at this point, and they were working together as a threesome to try to hunt small prey like voles and mice. And they were doing using the same methods as their parents had, where one was up on the ditch and two were below, and they were flushing out the prey in this same kind of way. So that said, I've been reflecting on my life and looking at the way that their parents up and left. My parents did not ever up and leave, even after the divorce. I was very much loved and I was very much taken care of on both sides, whether I was with one set of parents in one state or another set of parents in another state, right? But there was a point when I was about 10 years old where I felt like I was left, like the Coyotes and the Eaglets, to figure some serious stuff out on my own. And that's what brings me to my little list. Because if you were left partway through your childhood to just kind of figure things out, well, now we have the internet, thank God, that gives us clues, right? Every time we break something, we can refer to YouTube, and there's probably 20 plumbers that have fixed that thing, and we can watch them multiple times and figure it out on our own. So in the spirit of that, I wanted to share some life hacks with you that I found online. Okay, so the secret cash stash. Sometimes, says Jenny Stanley, I don't want to carry my wallet around. At the beach, for example, when I have to leave my belongings unattended while I go for a swim, but I still need cash on hand for food, for drinks, or whatever. So I turned an empty tube of lip balm into a secret cash stash. Isn't that brilliant? You could do the same with an empty stick of sunscreen too. A long nail works great for digging out any remaining bits of lip balm. You could actually microwave it for a couple seconds, and a cotton swab wipes away waxy residue. Not only is the tube small enough to fit in my pocket, but it'll also fool any potential thieves. I mean, who would steal someone's used lip balm? Okay, here's another one. A staple remover has perfectly sized thin teeth that make them perfect to easily slide between the rings of a key ring. When you clamp them down, it spreads the key rings apart and makes it easy to slide a new key on or an old key off. This saves you the hassle of trying to pry open the key ring with your nails, and it actually kind of hurts if you've done it before. This is turning more to home, right? Renew your furniture in minutes. Okay, this sounds great. This writer, Steve Winter, writes, "My son plastered all of the furniture in his room with stickers from skate shops, from arenas and gumball machines. Once he moved out, I wanted to use his furniture in the new guest room without the stickers. I peeled off all the stickers using a putty knife in combination with a blow dryer to soften the adhesive. Some are harder to remove than others, but I had them all off in a couple hours." My gosh, that's brilliant. So he's blow drying this sticker to warm up the adhesive and then using a putty knife to scrape it off. Another person contributed this. Ditch the time-consuming iron or handheld steamer to get wrinkles out of a shirt or pants. Throw a few ice cubes or a wet washcloth in the dryer with your wrinkled clothes. As the ice melts and the water turns to steam, it will remove the wrinkles. This trick isn't as effective with heavier clothing, but it's a miracle for lighter fabrics. The best part is that you don't have to set the dryer for longer than 10 minutes for it to work. Do you want fog-free mirrors in your bathrooms? Yeah, prevent your bathroom mirror from fogging up after a hot shower with car wax. Yeah, car wax. Apply a small amount of car wax to the mirror. Let it dry, then buff with a soft, dry cloth. Expert tips that add up to big savings on your next bath remodel. Since you bought car wax, it can be used in the next hack too. Coat your snow shovel with car wax. Yeah, if you're in a snowy area like I am, shoveling snow can be frustrating. But when heavy snow sticks or freezes in clumps on the shovel, it can make the job even more difficult. You can avoid this issue by first coating your shovel with car wax before heading out to clear your driveway and walking paths. This tip works best with metal shovels. Follow the application instructions on the car wax package. Generally, car wax is applied in a thin layer using a damp cloth, allowed to dry and then buffed off with a dry cloth. This leaves the shovel clean and lubricated so the snow and ice won't stick. I thought this was such a great idea, this next one. The writer says, "I'm all for dry erase message boards, but they're usually pretty unattractive. So I make message boards using nice picture frames. To make these message boards, grab a picture frame and some paper. Cut the paper to fit the frame and set it in behind the glass. And the paper is just to add color and texture, right? Instead of there being a photograph. The glass makes an excellent dry erase surface, and that comes from Jessie Dawson. I know that Disneyland doesn't sell bubble gum because they don't want people to have to scrape it off the grounds, like fill in the blank. The fences, the ground, the seating, so they don't sell bubble gum. You probably knew that already too. This tip talks about gum and carpet. When gum freezes, it gets brittle and it easily breaks apart. So if you have gum stuck in your carpet, freeze it to remove it quickly and neatly. And how you do that is by placing a sandwich bag filled with ice cubes on top of the gum and wait about a half an hour. When the gum is frozen, break it apart and pull it out of the carpet. No trace will be left behind. Okay, speaking of carpet, find your lost items. I have a friend, Molly, who is the finder of lost items. If you don't have time to schedule a session with Molly on TikTok, then this tip will help you. Everyone knows how annoying it is when you can't seem to find a dropped pill or a back of an earring. So how do you find these items quickly and easily? Use your vacuum cleaner. Here's the trick. Before you turn the vacuum on, cut off the end of a nylon and secure it on the end of your vacuum hose with a rubber band. And then when you suck it up, your lost item will end up at the end of that little piece of nylon. I thought that was kind of ingenious. Here's another tip to make your shoes look brand new. All you need is an old toothbrush and a little toothpaste to get your old sneakers looking like new. Non-gel white toothpaste works great for cleaning white-soled sneakers. Colored toothpaste can stain rather than clean the sneakers, they say. Apply toothpaste to an old toothbrush and then work the paste into the dirty spots. Leave the toothpaste on the shoes for about 10 minutes and then wipe it off with a damp cloth. Repeat the process if necessary. Oh, this is another tip I just thought of with toothpaste. If you have toothpaste that has some hydrogen peroxide in it or baking soda, and you have a pimple, set a little bit of that toothpaste, like a little glob of it, onto your pimple, and it will be gone by morning, or at least very shrunk. If you've ever wondered how to get dents out of wood, listen up. Dents in wood surfaces can be annoying, but fret not. They can be fixed. Simply soak a washcloth in water and wring it out a bit so it's not sopping wet, they write. Put the damp washcloth on the affected area. The water will wick through the wood, and that's fine. Now, with your iron on a high setting, place it on the damp washcloth over the affected area and make small movements back and forth and in circles. Press down firmly and continue until your washcloth is dry. It won't take long to evaporate. At this point, the wood fibers are absorbing the water and they should expand back to where they were originally. Continue this process, they write, and repeat by adding more water until the dents rise up to be flush with the rest of the material. Okay, and I have to add this note because we have a dent in our at the table where I drink my coffee and watch the Coyotes and the Eagles, apparently. I would recommend you do this in a spot that you don't see so that you know it's not going to harm the wood or the finish over the wood before you put it in an area. Try this in an area that is more obvious. So the lower side of a table or the corner of a wood floor versus right in the middle of your wood floor. Okay. Just try it on a tiny little patch somewhere before you go whole hog on that one. Okay. This was pretty brilliant. Use a ceramic mug as a sharpening stone. They write, the bottom of most ceramic coffee mugs have a flat, unglazed ring that's the perfect surface for giving that dull knife or blade a quick sharpening. And if you find yourself in need of sharpening a utility knife, pocket blade, or scissors and don't have access to a sharpening stone, you can simply flip over a ceramic coffee mug and use the outer edge of the bottom, the non-glazed part, as an emergency sharpening stone. Okay, that's pretty brilliant. I've also got links to a few more life hacks if you want to check them out in the show notes. And now it's time for a quick announcement before we close. All right, gird your loins. We're going to be okay. I promise we're going to be okay. For the last 2 months, my guides have been telling me I need to focus on writing a book. And they've given me 3 books actually to write that need to be written in 2025. And I was drafting those books, 2 in particular. And I'm finding with the effort it takes to do the podcast and do it well, you may not know, but with every episode, I read multiple books. I'm consulting 10, 15, 20 different magazine articles, different sources. And even if I'm interviewing somebody, I'm going super deep. It is time consuming because I care about what I'm putting out there for you. And it's made in love. And it truly is made in love. And it's been made with what my guides tell me to put out there. But with the book and the demands that writing takes, which is more being quiet and observing and listening and writing and editing and editing and editing. Well, I don't have time. I don't have time to do a weekly podcast, but I'm not giving it up. Don't worry about that. I also am not comfortable doing what my friend Karen Rontowski says, which is she's going to every other week. I may be doing every other week episodes, but I'm not going to promise you that. What I do promise is that when I choose to get behind the microphone, when I choose to share the mic with somebody else, it's because I want to make something for you in love, and I feel driven to do it on every level. And so I will put it out there and I will do it. So that's it. It's not going to be a regular every week thing. I'm not saying that there won't be a week where I'm totally inspired and I have 2 episodes come out that week. I'm not saying that I'm not going to revisit my back catalog and add some information to them that I've learned since or that a guest has to say about those things. It's just not going to look the same, at least for a little while here. I don't want to call it anything official. I'm not leaving you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just focusing on the written stuff. And if you want to follow it, I'm putting draft material on my Substack. It's called Thoughts Written in a Notebook or Thoughts Scribbled in a Notebook. I think if you Google my name, Jennifer Hodes Substack, it'll show up. And I can even put links to it in the show notes for you now that I'm thinking out loud. So I'll be here. And the email is still active. All of the social sites for the podcast are still active. And if you have a subject that you think will draw me in, suck me into doing another episode, shoot it my way. I am so welcome to hearing from you. Until the next time I'm behind the mic, stay curious. I love you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Hotes, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Hotes, spelled HOTES.com.